What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the RedBeard Outdoors podcast. We've got Rodger Holscher here, and Rodger is someone that I wanted to bring on for you guys because as I've been getting more and more into precision rifle, I'll be doing at least one NRL match, if not two this year. Haven't decided if I'm competing on teams or if I'm going to go do skills, which is probably what I'll end up doing first because I'm not planning on winning anything. I just want to get out there and enjoy it and learn from people that are a lot better than I am. So Rodger's one of those people, guys. He's out there. He loves to hunt. He loves precision rifle. He's got a killer stash that I'll never be able to have. And he's just got a wealth of knowledge that he's not one of those guys that goes out, and nothing against people that are online coaches and teachers, because there's some really good knowledgeable ones out there, just like there's crappy ones. But Rodger's one of those guys that doesn't put everything that he knows out there. He's very, very knowledgeable, and he will get into shooting bears on the run, because he is very qualified for that as well and proven in the field. So whether or not you like that, sure, you can drop a comment down below if you want. I'd love to hear all the hate if you've got hate, and if not, stay tuned. This is gonna be fun. So with that being said, Rodger, for people that don't know who you are, who are you?
Well, thanks for the introduction, dude. I'm a father, a husband, a police officer out here in Idaho. I've been a law enforcement officer for almost 14 years now, so having a lot of fun with that. Been in the long range game, precision rifle stuff for about 10 years. Kind of really just started competing as of probably 4 years ago. So it's fairly new to me on the competition side, but I was lucky enough to have a lot of really good mentors coming up, and from my father and brother all the way up from a couple buddies at work, snipers from the law enforcement side of things. So it's a lot of fun. So I enjoy kind of helping people where I can, which is I don't know, a firearms instructor here at the PD too. So that's kind of I really like doing that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's I'm 40 years old, so there's a lot of stuff we could talk about.
Yeah, for sure. No, I definitely understand that. There's a lot on the line when it comes to, we talk about hunting, we talk about shooting targets, precision rifle, things like that. But when you're learning from people like police snipers or military, snipers, there's even more at stake for them than wounding an animal, which is terrible in and of itself. You don't want to wound an animal ever. But when you've got a sniper in a position that is, human lives are at stake, and that is something that can send your heart rate through the roof, make you forget all of your fundamentals, and they train and train and train and train for that. And I know, I've talked to Joel Turner. Him and I are decent friends, I would say, and he is one of those guys that has talked about that as well and applying that to archery, etc. So
Yeah.
learning from those guys, you're going to learn a lot. And so I definitely am excited to dive into that. But talk to us a little bit about your police career. As a police officer, my father was a police officer in Fayetteville, North Carolina for a number of years. And I know from the family perspective how difficult that is. It's obviously different than military, but at the same time, the way he explained it to me was essentially because he served both military and then later as a policeman. And he said it's weird because you live in the city and you know people that you've met in their worst days, and they probably won't recognize you outside of uniform. But he was like, that was kind of the weirdest thing for him, taking off the uniform and walking around the city, seeing people that he had interacted with, and they probably didn't even recognize him.
Yeah, it's tough because there's a lot of the law enforcement side of things where you know everybody's dirty secrets, but you can't tell, right? And so when you see these people out on the streets, most of the time, I mean, I try to conduct myself and I tell my guys, I'm a patrol supervisor, like you treat everybody with respect because you don't know who you're going to run into off duty, right? But you should treat everybody with respect anyway. But when you run into somebody off duty, even if you've arrested that guy, like if you show him the respect that he's due during that arrest, like I get thanks when I arrest people and I take them to jail because of the interaction, right? The outcome's the same, but it's, how it gets to that outcome that makes a difference to people, whether they're treated with respect or not. So, I've never ran into somebody off duty, like that I've arrested or dealt with that's ever caused me problems. There's been a few times in a grocery store you give a guy a head nod, like I know you know, and kind of thing, and we go about our business because we're usually with our families. So I've never had any negatives that way, but I've had a lot of buddies that have had issues, whether that's off duty in a grocery store with their family or a restaurant, things like that. But so there is that side of things. But I mean, I don't live in the town that I work anymore, so it kind of alleviates a little bit of that.
Yeah. Brief interruption here. I just want to let you know that right now, First Form has a phenomenal offer, 30 days free in the app that I personally use to check my food. As you can see there, this is my day so far today. But the app is super simple, guys. You get into the app here and you're able to track activity. You're able to track workouts if that's what you choose. If you don't have a program, you know, like the First Form Outdoors. This one's the at-home body weight. Let's see, we can go through. Anyway, you can browse all the different options on here, such as outdoor workouts at home if you have limited amount of weights or whatever it might be. If you're in a full gym, whatever, guys, there's so many programs in here available already ready for you. And of course, you can get a coach as well. So if you're looking for all of that in a great community, sometimes there's challenges in here like steps challenge, things like that. Guys, if you don't track it, you don't know what's going into your body. I'm guilty of that myself. I've been there. I'm changing things because I feel like personally I have failed my family in the health department. I hit the gym every day. Nutrition is a big thing that I have let fall by the wayside, though. So being more productive in the gym and more productive in the kitchen, both combined are going to end up with phenomenal results. I want that for you as well. So definitely head over to well, first off, pinned comment down in this video. Go to that to get 30 days free with the First Form app. Thanks so much, guys. Now let's get back to the show. Like what we were saying, honestly, I've got the perspective of, from the kid, that my dad was, you start with the crappy shifts, where you're working all the nights, and you don't get really a lot of holidays off, and you kind of start at the bottom of the totem pole. And watching him work up through that. He hated the paperwork. He loved interacting with the community. And he was actually known more as, he said they dubbed him the title officer friendly, because kind of like what you were saying, where he had good interactions with people. Like back then, weed wasn't legal, like it is now in most states to some degree. And, he'd catch kids with, weed in their pocket or whatever, and he would just make them destroy it and then or throw it away right in front of him. And he's like, I'm not going to ruin your life over this. Just don't be stupid, kind of deal.
Yeah, right.
You pull people over, you want them to have good interactions with you because they're heightened, in a heightened situation with being pulled over. They don't know what's going on. You've got a cop walking up on you, you're in your car, all this stuff. So it's good to hear that you have similar scenarios where, yeah, it sucks that you're arresting somebody, but at the same point, like, some people kind of recognize that they need that in that moment for whatever reason. They need that adult timeout, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah.
And it really does come down to how you handle the situation. In the majority of cases, some people are just garbage humans, unfortunately. But for the most part, it does come down to how you control that interaction. So it's cool that you have that.
Yeah, you can do a lot of stuff, but some people you just can't sway over. But as long as you just remain composed and respectful, they get it. Eventually, they'll calm down and realize that they were in the wrong. So
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that you've got a voice for radio and an awesome stash. That both of those things probably calm people down a little bit. They're like, oh, this guy probably knows what he's talking about. I should listen.
It's a conversational piece. Sometimes it's kind of funny how often it gets mentioned, but.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Cool. And you said how many years you've been in law enforcement?
On 14 now. I started
Wow,
back in 2012.
man,
Not up
that's
here in
crazy.
Idaho, but yeah.
Yeah. So you're up in Idaho. And remind me, you're up more towards the Panhandle area, right? If I remember correctly.
No, I'm just west of Boise.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Cool. So, for those out there listening, we met through Initial Ascent, actually. Those guys are awesome guys. And then, your social media name is pretty interesting. Backcountry Baba Yaga. And if you don't know what Baba Yaga is, go and watch John Wick. They call him that quite a few times.
Yeah. Gotta watch
But
the first one though for them to explain it.
yes, yeah, exactly, exactly. But explain that a little. How did that come about? That nickname get dubbed on you, and where'd that come from?
Honestly, it's kind of born out of necessity. I was a cop in California in a not so good part of California. And like we never put our names on social media
Mm,
because you had a lot of people like look people up, look up their families, blast them all over the internet, like a lot of anti PD
yeah,
type people. So I never had my name on there. So I had, John Wick came out not too long before that, and I really like that, and I like hunting in the backcountry, so I was like, oh, I'll put that on there, and I never had my actual name attached to my Instagram or Facebook for the longest time, and until my first year at the expo, and I was walking around with Chris Young, and like everybody was like, "Hey, dude, how you been? You're giving hugs and everything." I'm like, "How the hell do you know all these people?" And he's like, "Oh, dude, through social media." And
social
I was like,
media.
"Well, I got social media too, but I don't know any of these people." And he's like, "Yeah, dude, yours is private and you don't have your name on it." And I was like, all
Yeah,
right."
yeah,
So,
exactly. That's cool. So you got tied in with the initial Ascent boys, which they're an awesome company, great people, Christian dudes. Just they love getting after it. They make good gear, an amazing backpack,
yep,
and and they're just coming out with more and more now with the duffel bags and scout backpack and the whitetail that's coming out as well. So anyway, with all that, so you've been in law enforcement for 14 years. You're up in Idaho at this point. Obviously you love getting out in the backcountry and hunting. Talk to us about how did that start for you? You didn't obviously start in Idaho, so what got you into hunting in Idaho in the backcountry?
oh man, I grew up in a really rural area in northeastern California on a
Mm.
cattle ranch. Like, so we were shooting anything that moved, much to the fishing game's dismay. Is as early as I could remember, like we were out with BB guns and
Mhm.
22s and everything, and then I gradually got into deer hunting after waterfowl and stuff. Once you turned 12, you could deer hunted with a rifle for a couple years, and then I picked up a bow and pretty much exclusively bow hunted for a long time. And then buddy that's was a sniper down in Central California for a SWAT team. He was a big rifle guy. Obviously, he's a SWAT guy, a sniper. And so at that point, I had an AR and I had a varmint rifle for shooting coyotes, but I did everything big game with a bow. So I didn't get into wasn't the long range guy, and then I started hanging out with him and bought a 308, a Remington 700P with a Manor stock on it and started shooting kind of the long range stuff with the 308. But I never really even backpack hunted up in northeastern California. That really wasn't how we hunted. We hunted a lot
Mm.
over water in ground blinds with a bow, or in a tree stand with a bow. Just it's hot. It's 100 plus degrees in August. You're trying to hunt velvet mule deer, so it was, and there wasn't the big canyons and big draws like you see, and there in Utah or Wyoming and where all these guys are hunting velvet muleys. Like it's kind of sage flats, juniper trees, lava rocky areas. So that was the best way that we did it. So that's really how we hunted or hunted clear cuts. So it wasn't until that same guy that Chris Ollis is his name. He kind of got me into the backpack hunting too. There are some really nice parts of California where you could do that kind of high alpine stuff. So he was like, let's do it. And I don't know, this was probably back in 2015, 2016, maybe when we first kind of started doing that. And then I came up to Idaho as a non resident back in 2016, 2017, I can't remember. 2016, I think. Hunted as a non-resident and killed a couple bucks and kind of fell in love with the area. I had never been in Idaho at that point. And then through my law enforcement job, things were building tension at the department I was at, both like politically and just within the department and everything. And me and my wife decided that it was probably a good thing to get out of that state and get out of that area. And so we moved up here in 2018 and then really started diving into it. I timed it just right to where I got my residency just as
Mm.
Spring Bear was opening the following year. So my first
Perfect.
like legit backpack hunt that I killed something on was a spring bear hunt. And that's kind of a roundabout way of how I got into initial ascent. It was because the backpack that I had um, absolutely killed my back trying to pack out that bear. And it wasn't even a bad pack out. Like looking back on it now, it was miserable at the time because I was super uncomfortable. The backpack A didn't probably fit me right, and B just wasn't built for carrying that kind of weight. And so my back was killing me. I ended up meeting Chris at work. Actually, he was a jail deputy at the time, and so we were swapping stories. He's like, "Hey, I got this backpack, initial scent. Like, I live close to you. I could swing by and you could try it on." And I had never heard of initial scent at that point. This was spring of 2019, and I think they
Mm.
launched in 2018. So it was fairly new company still. And so um, I he came by, I tried it on. I sold the pack that I had and bought an initial scent and haven't looked back.
Yep. No, that's awesome, and that's a great way to get into hunting. I mean, spring bear, I've only had one experience with spring bear, and it was, I mean, it was June, so it was the latter end of spring bear season. It was hot.
Yeah.
It was that was blistering hot, and for a ginger, trying to stay out of the sun, that was a rough day. Um, but yeah, no, it is a lot of fun, and then getting to interact with bears, or watch them, I guess, interact with nature and their own environment was pretty cool. So with spring bear being your first, I mean, were you said you kind of grew up with ARs and a varmint rifle, but when did you start getting into looking at more precision bolt rifles?
I had that 308, but it was more of just it wasn't actually, I brought it up here for that non-resident hunt that I
Mm.
had. And it just barely met that 15 pound or a 16 pound weight limit that Idaho has. But it's still like just,
Wait,
is it
sorry, say that again. A 16-pound weight limit?
Yeah, so that's actually where the integral hunter weight limit comes for open heavy is
Okay.
16 pounds. So Idaho has a 16-pound limit, so that's weighing your rifle. Unlike integral hunter, you don't have your magazine or ammo in it, but in Idaho, that's if a game warden stops you, he'll weigh your rifle with your magazine fully loaded, with your bipod, with whatever's attached to it. So sling and everything at the time. So they have a 16
Wow.
pound weight limit. So I was just under that with that 308, and so it wasn't really a backpacking rifle, but did it, and then it's like, all
Is
right, I
that
need to get
sorry,
into
I'm
something.
I'm getting
Uh,
stuck on that because this is one of those
yeah,
things where as an out-of-state hunter yourself, for me going into Idaho out of state, I mean, I try and keep my stuff lightweight anyway, so I'm well under
yeah,
that 16-pound mark, but like first off, my question is why? It's like with mechanicals or lighted nocks or like
yeah,
why? If you're willing to carry in a 30-pound rifle, why can't you use a 30-pound rifle?
yeah.
That just
Eh,
seems do you know why? I mean, it's
I
not your job
don't.
to know, but yeah,
I
okay.
think it's an arbitrary number. I think that somebody along the way was like, "Oh, these big sniper rifles or these big, 338 Lapuas or whatever are this weight, so we don't want people to do all the longer." It's been there for, I mean, at least what 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So I don't know
New
exactly
new
when it
goal
started.
new goal is unlocked right now. We need a 338 Lapua that's 10 pounds.
Oh,
How about
there's
we
it's doable. I just don't know if you want to shoot it.
That's what I'm saying. We'll put the butt
Yeah,
stock on it about that butt pad's gonna be about
yeah.
that thick, right? Dude,
Yeah,
that
so
is
that's I mean,
crazy. Ha
Idaho's got some weird laws
Wow.
like that. They're a very traditional state as far as their laws, like, with their
Well,
muzzle
and
loaders
that's the other thing
stuff.
too. You say traditional. I think a traditional wood stock bull barrel rifle, like that seems heavy, so I think you would hit that 16-pound mark
It's
pretty easily.
it's pretty hard. I mean,
Mm,
I hunt with a 13-pound rifle, and like you're carrying something at 13.
yeah.
Most rifles, I mean, a lot of guys weigh their rifle without bipod and suppressor and everything on there, but like the little 6.5 PRC next to me right now that I built out that's on a lightweight carbon fiber stock and barrel, you know, pretty lightweight bipod and everything, and I think it's finishing around at 11 pounds. So
Hmm.
you can get super light. Like if I didn't have a suppressor on there and a bipod and everything, like you can shave off a couple pounds off of that. But I don't know, I build my rifles to shoot, not to carry. So
Yeah.
I say I get close to that 16-pound mark, but it's pretty hard to. I mean, a lot of competition rifles can get there, but for most people's hunting rifle, it's usually not going to be 16. So I've never really
Yeah.
ran into anybody that's had issues staying under that, unless you're like trying to get close to it.
Mhm. Brief moment here, interrupting the podcast to remind you of another amazing partner of the show, Grizzly Coolers. Grizzly Coolers, guys, they are fantastic. Well, they're more than just coolers. So Grizzly. If you're in the Midwest, East Coast, or even in the West Coast, if you have a place for a place to put a permanent stand, box blind. They have amazing blinds. They have troughs if you're looking to put up water. I don't know the technical name for that. They have so many other things like this cool, amazing hat right here. I love the black camo. And also coolers of all sizes. They have soft-sided coolers, which we've taken up to Alaska, the backpack cooler, which is fantastic. They have your coolers for your day-to-day use. And this right here, honestly, guys, I don't drink coffee or anything like that, but I put my energy drinks and cold drinks in this thing right here. It is fantastic. Look, slide, super smooth, and it is magnet. So super easy to clean. Right there. There we go. Got it to focus. All right. Now, guys, go check it out. They have amazing single walled cups. They have the double line cups. They have tumblers if you're into the big tumblers. They have the gallon size monster jug if you're looking to get a gallon in a day of your water. So all of that, guys, you can go and check out Grizzly with code REDBEARD10. Save you some money, support the show, support amazing partners. USA made coolers. Fantastic. I trust my game meat. I trust my family's camping trips with them. And they're made for box step-ups too, guys. If you need a box step-up, go grab one. Check out Grizzly Coolers and Grizzly Drinkware and Grizzly everything. Go check it out, guys, with code REDBEARD10. The link down below. Thank you so much for the support. Now let's get back to the podcast. Yeah, that's a silly thing. I think I'd heard about that before, but it's one of those things. It's like, again, know your regulations when you go out of state, because I'd hate for someone to have an amazing opportunity. Maybe they're coming from precision shooting, PRS, whatever. They don't have another rifle, and they bring that heavy sucker out. You know, you want to make sure you're
Dude,
following
I
the
think
rules.
if you're strong enough and you want to carry that, by all means, man, you know, and
Right.
that's kind of where I'm at with it. But that's the
That's
same.
that's what I say. But again, it's one of those laws. It's like, all right, again, mechanicals, lighted knocks, electronics on your site. Like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like
And
it's
the
someone.
fact that we can't have a scope cam on our rifle scope to just video through the rifle scope while you're hunting
Oh,
is
that's
just,
illegal too.
oh yeah, it's stupid that you can't do that. You can't
Oh, great.
attach, dude. If you had like your Garmin chronograph,
Mhm.
your zero attached to the side of your rifle,
Mhm.
that would be illegal to hunt with. Just a chronograph on the side.
What about a Leupold with the fire dot in the
So
middle?
illuminated reticles are fine. That's
Okay.
the only thing that's spelled out in that law, that
Well,
the
so
illuminated reticles are
oh my
fine. But like
gosh.
some of the Revic scopes and some of
Mhm.
the Burrises that have the heads up display in the inside, no go. Can't hunt with those.
I just feel like that
Yeah.
would make it'd make you more accurate. It's like the Garmin sites. Like, if someone wants to go drop $2,000 on a site, and I feel like it's going to make them more accurate. But what do I know? I guess, politicians sitting up on their high
Yeah.
horses in town that don't actually go out and hunt. Those are the ones making the decisions, unfortunately.
Right. Well, and so
Mm.
it's funny. So you can't have like MDT has their send it level, their electronic
Mhm.
level. You can't have that on your scope, and it's an electronic
But
level.
what if it's mounted to your rifle?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like you can't mount
Oh,
it to your rifle. It can't be attached to your rifle at all.
oh,
But
geez.
these guys, it's currently legal for guys to hunt with thermals as long as it's not attached to the rifle. So you'll have guys with thermal binoculars out scanning the countryside at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's legal.
Yeah.
But you can't have a electronic level on your bow or on
Hmm.
your rifle. It's like,
That seems very, very
yeah,
valid and fair. Awesome. Great
that's
work,
gonna
guys.
change. Yeah, that's gonna change soon though. They're gonna get rid of that. They're probably gonna get rid of the cellular game cameras. They're gonna get rid of drone
I thought
or
they already did, didn't they?
no, so
Proposed or
it
something?
was proposed by the hack group,
Okay.
their task force with the civilians on it, and
Hmm,
then it's approved by the commission, and now it's going before the state legislature to get basically written into law. So
interesting. I mean, Utah's got it set up that way with trail cams. It's kind of silly. But if you've got private land, you can keep them on there.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just
and
can't have it
that'll
on
be
public.
very similar. Yeah, between
Hmm.
and there's a time frame, and it's
Yep.
I
I
look
think the
at it from
proposed
a
was the same as Utah, where it's the end of July. So August 1st, you can't have them up anymore. And then you can't put them back up until December, like essentially January 1st. So all during the fall, you can't have the cameras up, which I don't know. Like, I, yeah, I'm torn because I don't feel like, I mean, you can't teleport to your camera. You still got to hike in wherever it is. By
yeah,
the time you're there, the animal's gone. They're not going to be there unless you've got it in their bedding area. And, it's just, it's one of those things. It's like, I don't know. I don't understand it.
yeah. I look at it from a enforcement perspective. Like, how are you going to enforce some of this stuff? Because I think it says in there, and I'd have to, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it says like for the purposes of
Oh, yeah. Of
take
hunting. Yeah. Mhm.
or, purposes of big game hunting or something like that. So if you're out there looking for coyotes or wolves, and that's what you have your game camera out for, like
Mine's
how are
set
they
up
gonna?
on birds. Like I'm birding.
Yeah, right. I'm a bird watcher, right? So that's
There's a
that's
nest
that's what
right
I'm at.
here.
Is like
Yeah.
when there's an intent behind it, you have to prove the intent to prove the other elements, and how hard is it going to be to for that intent? I mean,
Is it even going to be
you're going to
worth their
write Sharpie
time?
like bird watching camera on your,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it? So if you can enforce it, why make a law of it? That's kind of where I'm at with stuff. It's if it's in enforcement, yeah, no, right, and
That's what it comes down to.
yeah,
Lawyers want to get paid. They get to write all the legal jargon. It's crazy, man. The older I get, the more I'm like, goodness, I don't like people. I
yeah,
don't like people. Oh man, it's crazy. But anyway, yeah, the amount of just like I hate micromanaging too, whether it's at a job or all that. Like, let's be adults, let's be kind to each other. If you find my trail camera, which mine don't have SD cards, but if they did, I'm like, dude, go ahead, look at them, just put it back, please. Like, don't,
yeah,
like, it's on public land. I'm okay if you want to use it because it's on public land, but don't destroy it. Don't take the SD card. Don't, all that mess. Like, just,
yeah.
um,
I used to run
anyway, I
trail
can.
cameras. I don't anymore, but I used to run them for
Mhm.
bears. So I had bear boxes on them, like metal bear boxes. But I don't
I
know.
did have
I
an
just,
elk beat the crap out of one of mine. It was kind of funny to watch the
oh, yeah,
videos. Like yeah, I don't know what was on the camera, but it was like 2 days after we put it up, and an elk was coming through, and he just all you see is the nose and the antlers, and then the camera's pointed down, and I'm like, oh, great.
yeah. I've had that with bears when, yeah, you get like the teeth over the
Hmm.
camera, like they start pawing at it, and
Hmm.
squirrels will chew the strap sometimes.
Hmm.
Like, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
always
that's
fun.
funny.
It's always like what's on my camera when
Yeah.
you go get it and you pull the SD card. But
But I will say
so
and you can get even more technical with like some of these cell cameras. If you just take the antenna off, technically it's not a cell camera anymore. Stuff like that. And then my I did have one though, so Reveal actually, and I know most trail cameras are I mean, it's just like it with hunting as well. There's more people out east and Midwest, so they're all mostly catered to that crowd. But man, the Reveal, I think it's the Ultra. I call it FaceTiming the animals. I mean, you literally can tune in live. And so like I got pinged, man, we were at home and this was up in Idaho, but I got a notification. I saw it was a bull on this wallow, and I pulled it up and I got to show my kids from the phone up in Idaho this bull wallowing and doing his thing. I mean, it was cool. It was
that
like
is cool.
watching Discovery Channel as a kid again.
Right.
And my kids were asking why is he throwing mud everywhere and what's he doing, all that stuff. And um having a video is cool, but that was even, I mean, that was awesome being able to
Yeah,
watch
right.
that. So,
And how is that
it's
going to help you much, right? Like, if there's a bull at the wallow, when you walk in there, even if you see that bull and you're in Utah, like it's still going to take you 5 or 6 hours to drive up here, get it. That bull's not going to be there. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Or even, I mean, we were up there in one area, we had some cameras set up, and then we had some set up in another area. And it, I mean, it did change our hunt because we were running into a lot of people down in this other area. The bulls weren't hitting it. They weren't on our cameras. We checked some non-cell cameras, and even a lot of the cellular cameras didn't have service in this area. So we went around and checked all the cameras, and the elk had essentially moved out of that area. And then we were getting pinged at this other area up north. And so, yeah, I mean, it changed our hunt, but it didn't guarantee success, right? It just
yeah,
told us, hey, the elk aren't here. We're not going to waste our 5 days that we planned on being here. We drove overnight, showed up at 2 a.m. at this other spot, and we ended up I didn't end up tagging out, but my buddy ended up tagging out. We still played chess the entire, I mean, all of September. I had 9 or 10 cameras set up, and I didn't kill a bull. And it wasn't for lack of effort, like
oh,
it
yeah,
was, they're still animals. They're still gonna, I'd be sitting at one wallow and then I'd get pinged that he's at another wallow. I'm like, well, frick. But by the time I get there, he's not gonna be there anymore,
yeah.
So,
Well, even me, I I kind of hunt elk like deer, so I'll glass them up in the morning,
mm,
figure out what timber pocket they go in bed, and then wait for the thermals to get above them and slip down on them, kind of a still hunt through the timber. I usually don't call. So even with that, like I know where they're at. I just watched them walk into here, and it's still like super hard to get into them.
mhm.
So camera ain't gonna help me do that at all.
Dude, I had a four-wheeler that I got to borrow this year to run the mountainside a little bit more quickly. And I'd go up in the morning. I was glassing, didn't see a thing. On my way back to camp to move spots, there were elk tracks over top of my four-wheeler tracks. I'm like, I was just what are you doing? Like
Yeah,
they're still animals. They still have a say in what they do. Anyway, I could talk about this for hours, and I
yeah,
wish people would people that matter more than us, apparently, that have the pull. I wish they would listen, but whether it's money or people with in my opinion bad opinions, are making the decisions on this, and I don't know, it's going to end up affecting a lot of people. But anyway, let's shift over to, so your first hunt was your first western kind of backcountry hunt was the black bear up in Idaho. So if you don't mind me asking, how far was that first shot for you with a 308?
382. So that one I ended up switching. I After that I had that 308 sniper rifle, if you want to call it. It's a Remington 700P. After that one, I was like, all right, I need something lighter to carry. So I ended up getting a Ruger Gunsight Scout, which is a 16-inch 308 with iron
Ooh.
sights, and I threw a scope on it. Killed a buck in California with it. And when I moved up to Idaho, I'm like, all right, just running your ballistics. It's easy to see. That 16-inch 308 peters out with terminal velocity very quickly, and so I needed something bigger. And so I ended up,
So
before
real
I left
quick,
California.
I'm just going to
Yeah,
call out certain terms that you bring up here just for people listening, because a lot of my audience is archery. Maybe they're getting into
yeah.
rifle stuff, or they're new. What do you mean by terminal velocity when you say that?
So the velocity of the bullet on impact and how much velocity that bullet needs to disrupt, expand.
Mhm,
Most bullets don't expand like you would see, the front to back kind of mushrooming
mhm,
expansion. I've seen most of them hit at an angle, whether that's just the trajectory and the path of the bullet, the flight of the bullet, that it tumbles when it hits, or it disrupts kind of from the side, and not for beautiful mushroom. Kind of depends on the angle of the impact. So the 308, it's just kind of a dud when it comes to the ballistic coefficient, which for your archery guys, your heavy arrow versus light arrow, your heavy arrow is going to maintain your velocity downrange. It's going to start slower, but it's going to keep its velocity, so that you can kind of look at that as the ballistic coefficient of the arrow. The
mhm,
bullets have, whether it's their shape, their weight, their diameter, things kind of go into the ballistic coefficient of the bullet, which is a comparison to a standard size projectile.
mhm.
And what it is compared to that. So generally, the higher the BC, the ballistic coefficient is, the more slippery, the more efficient the bullet is in flight. So some of those really high BC bullets, you can start off slow, but it'll still maintain its velocity faster than taking a lighter bullet that doesn't have that kind of profile. Launch it faster, but it'll lose its velocity quick. So the 308 bullets that I was shooting were 168 burgers, and for a 308 168 class bullet, they're pretty good, but launching them as slow as I was, I think it's only 2,400 feet a second out of a 16-inch barrel. Like I need 1,800 feet a second out of that bullet downrange for it to expand. Just looking at these canyons, I mean, you've been up here. Most of the time, it's 600 yards across, and when I'm limiting myself with a cartridge and rifle combination, I knew I wouldn't be able to have the opportunities I was going to. So I ended up getting a Browning AB3 or a AB2 A bolt and 300 short mag. And I hunted with that, reloaded for that, hunted with that for a couple years, and then have kind of sold that and built a bunch of guns. That first shot on that bear was with that 300 short mag Browning. It was 382 yards with a 200 grain ELDX.
Nice. And for people as well, that are learning terms here, 300 short mag, 300 wisdom, it's the same caliber or same cartridge. When you hear wisdom or short mag, it's Winchester short mag. That 300 wisdom's pretty awesome. I've heard a lot of good things about it, just like the 7 Psalm. That's another one that a lot of people tend to go to as well if they're getting into reloading, especially. I mean, that's a big reloading cartridge.
Yeah.
If you're not into that, which I am not, I try and stick with good box ammo. And so but anyway, that's awesome. And going back to terminal velocity again, for people in the archery space, like you want a good velocity. I think a lot of people try and chase speed a little too much in the archery space, even with, it's fun to go and shoot the 90-pound Hoyt that just came out. We cranked it up to 100 pounds. Like that stuff is fun. But in all reality, you need a sharp broadhead or an expanding broadhead, and you need to focus on accuracy, things like that. But you do hit a certain, point where it's not going to penetrate anymore. And like what you're saying with a bullet, you need to know your cartridge, you need to know your bullet and what velocity you should be hitting that animal with, not just what it's coming out of the barrel, but what it's hitting the animal with. And that's where this long range, I think a lot of people focus on the wrong things when they talk about long range hunting. They're like, oh, there should be an arbitrary number of 600 yards is too long, yada, yada. It all depends on the shooter. And then of course the cartridge, you want it to expand. You don't want to be hitting it with the equivalent of a field point or a non-expanding bullet when it gets to the animal. You want to be ethical about it. So even if you are capable of hitting a target at 1,200 yards consistently, if your bullet's not going to expand, what good does that do you in the field, right? So you need to know those things.
And that is a very common misconception, and a lot of people think just heavier bullet means it's going to have more wallop, more thump, more authority on target and everything.
More stopping power.
Yeah. So I was having a conversation with a guy the other day, and he's a big hunter, but he's not, that much of a a long range hunter, if you want to call it that. And so we were talking about cartridge stuff. He's got a 6.5 PRC. It's a 20-inch, and so we're talking about bullets and reloading and loads that he should go with. And I have a lot of experience with a 20-inch, 22-inch, 26-inch 6.5 PRC, and so it's kind of giving him some velocities and everything. And he was asking about the 156 Burger, which is what I used last year in my 6.5 Wildcat hunting, and I killed a couple deer with it, and it's a great bullet. But just telling him kind of what the velocities that he was expecting out of that short of a barrel, it was like, if you want to shoot past, X amount of yards, like that bullet really likes to live around that 1,800 feet a second as a minimum expansion velocity or disruption velocity. So I was like, hey, you might want to look more towards the 147 ELDM, which is a great bullet. And, I'm trying to explain to him that, hey, because that's more of a tipped match bullet over a boat-tail hollow point, he has a lower expansion velocity than a up to a hollow point like a burger. And so it's like you'll probably get more effective range just with that bullet being able to disrupt at a lower velocity. Like I shot a buck last year at a pretty ridiculous distance, and it was below the 1,800 feet a second expansion velocity for that burger. But kind of part of my job too, doing some outdoor riding stuff, is I got to try to test some of these limits and theories, and I actually got really good success out of that bullet at 1,650 feet a second expansion velocity, but a
Wow.
lot of it was the location of the impacts too.
Brief interruption to the podcast. Just want to remind you that it's important to keep your electronics charged when you're out in the backcountry, when you're on the road, wherever it is that you may be, even if you're international, whatever, you need a reliable charging source. And whether that is a international charging block, which I'm telling you guys, we've traveled out of the country a couple times now, my wife and I, and the Dark Energy battery, or the Dark Energy plug-in, I don't know the name of it, guys, but it has all the different plugs for the various countries all in one block, along with multiple USB-C and USB-A plugs for you to be able to use. Go and check that out. It is a converter block, but you can also use it here in the US. Highly recommend that you go and check that out. Use code REDBEARD to save some money. If you're just sticking here to the US and you need to charge your phone, we have the MagSafe Nano charger right here. This thing is a powerhouse for how small it is. I have the regular sized iPhone. Fits on there like a charm. You definitely want to check out the Nano. Or we have the Poseidon Pro battery pack. This thing is my trusted battery pack. No matter where I'm going, I slip this into my backpack with a charger. And most of the time, I get to share it with my wife or my kids. Or if I need it and there's no charging available at an airport, when we're driving, whatever it may be, this thing is great. And again, normal size iPhone right here, very slim. So go check out Dark Energy. Get my favorite battery pack, this one or the Nano or the charging block. Use code REDBEARD, save some money, support the show. Now let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I was gonna say I just have some handy here, the 147 ELDMs.
Yep.
Right here. Again, I go box. It sounds like you do a lot of reloading. Burgers are awesome bullets from what I understand. I've never shot them. But they're definitely up there for the reloading people. And Hornady obviously as well is up there. I haven't tested these out on animal yet, but they fly really good. They group really well, which is important too. But yeah, that's awesome that you tested that. So I guess you shot a 6.5 PRC. Is that what you were saying for this buck?
Basically, so I took a 7 PRC.
Wildcat?
Yeah, it took a 7 PRC and necked it down to 6.5 because I wanted a 20-inch barrel. I kind of wanted a short, compact package.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start chopping off barrel length, you need to up your horsepower to maintain the velocity. So out of a 20-inch barrel, when I was doing load work up with that, I was actually shooting those 147s at like 3,100 out of a 20-inch barrel.
Dude.
So, and that was stepping on it a little bit, so I'd backed it down. 153 A tips, I had gone 3,000 out of a 20-inch barrel, which was they were smoking. It was a great load. But I ended up going with that burger. Tried different powder, and that burger. I would not chase velocity. I would chase accuracy, and so I ended up shooting a 0.9 or 0.8 something inch, sub-inch 20-shot group with that rifle and that load. So I was like, all right, this is super consistent. The velocities were really consistent. So that was what I hunted with. So for people that don't know, I mean, most when a rifle comes to you, if you're buying a factory rifle or you're getting a barrel that guarantees sub MOA, most of the time it's a 3-shot group. Yeah. That's kind of the standard. I don't know who set that standard. I don't know enough about it, but it's generally a 3-shot group. If you can get a 5-shot group sub MOA, that's awesome. One, that's good on you as a shooter, but that's a great, phenomenal setup. If you can shoot 20 rounds sub MOA, guys, Rodger's being a little humble here and kind of brushing over that, but hot damn, that is a good group, man. 13-pound rifle, it's set up to hammer those kinds of groups, and that load, it was only going 29. I can't even do that at 100 yards, man. I cannot do that at 100 yards. Well, that's what it was it
Yeah.
100 yards, 20
I mean,
shots,
this
but
right here, this is my 6.5 from, so some of them are walking it in. So ignore those groups. But this was my final group with the 6.5
oh yeah.
Creedmoor 22-inch barrel, right? I mean, that each square is an inch, right?
Yeah,
So
that's
it's
an inch.
just over an inch. And that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rounds.
Yeah, I'd
So,
take that all
I
day.
mean, yeah. Oh, I mean, it's funny. We get so critical about it in archery too. You're like, oh, I can touch my arrows. I can wrap my hands around it at 80 yards. And you're like, that's freaking awesome. Cause you look at how big a mule deer is or an elk.
Yeah.
If you can do that, on an animal at that distance, great. If you can shoot, 10 rounds or 20
Yeah.
rounds, sub 1 inch. I mean, heck, dude, it's
Well,
that.
it's that rifle, you're gonna trust that it's always gonna do that. The
Mhm,
problem that I have with a 3-shot group and everybody cherry picking, and I did it too when I first started reloading and everything. Like I'd go to the range with a load and, shoot 3-shot groups with a bunch of different loads and then go, oh man, this one hammers. It was a quarter of an inch. Like, this is a great load. I'd go
mhm,
back, load it up, come back out to the range, and then it was like an inch and a half. I'm like, why is this? Oh my gosh, my load, something's going on. And well, when you shoot that small of a group sample, and the Hornity's podcast is really good at, they talk about it, is that your natural dispersion of that rifle and that load, like, you statistically don't get anything out of a 3-shot group. So when you start shooting 10s, 15s, 20s, I think they say statistically once you get to like 30% or 30 rounds, it's like 98% like your cone of fire.
mhm.
But I think you get a pretty good at 10 shots, like you got a pretty good idea if that gun's going to hammer or not. So I'd rather take an inch 10-shot group, 20-shot group over a 3-shot quarter-inch group because you don't
Mhm.
know. And you watch these guys that shoot those, and I did it. Like, you think you're zero wanders. Well, no, you just happen to, the 3 shots you took this day were kind of at the lower left side of your cone of fire, and then the next group you shot was just
Yeah.
a little bit higher. So like
It's
you
like,
think
were
your
you wearing a
zero's
puffy
wandering.
that day? Was your beard 2 inches longer that day? Was
Yeah,
your mustache tickling your nose? Like,
yeah.
it's there's a lot going on.
And I
Um,
see that when I go to matches, like everybody thinks
mm,
that there's zero wanders, but I know your mean radius or what I can expect my zero to be and my group to be within that radius of my point of aim. Like, I shot 3 shots at the last match just to get my velocity for the power factor for Arrow Hunter, and those 3 shots were touching and they were, within my acceptable zero. Um, cone of
mhm,
fire. And so I just left it. And then you see guys over there having to adjust their scopes and they're just chasing their zero because they think it
yeah.
wandering, but it's just within that cone of fire still.
Well, if you shoot quality glass, it won't wander on you. Just saying, you know.
Mine is a
You know,
loophole. I see your
I
loophole,
know,
not
right? That's
mine.
it's exactly. It's yeah,
Yeah,
loophole. I've never shot Night Force or Colliz. You've got
yeah,
some really nice glass out there. And then you've got the
yeah,
ones that show up and you can tell they're sponsored because they're not shooting something that you would actually shoot if you had to pay for it. So
yeah. Well, dude, I've been super happy. I know you're a loophole guy, but a Steiner, their
yeah.
H6XI is
Hmm.
what's on that 6.5x7 PRC, and that thing just gets beat up. It never touched the turrets all year, and it actually got ran over by a UTV on the mountain this year. It just kind of kicked over. The tire scraped
Hmm.
it and it knocked it over. But yeah, it's bounced in the back of a truck, on the front of a 4-wheeler, in a case,
Hmm.
and it just held zero. I've been super happy
Yeah.
with that scope, but that I compete with a Mark IV HD,
Hmm.
4 to 24, so,
Yeah.
or 6 to 24s.
Yeah. That's what I've got so I'm building the 6.5 Creedmoor 24-inch barrel off of an Arrow Action. And then I'm gonna have a Mark 5 on it, uh, 5 to 25, I think.
Good.
And that's kind of the plan. That's way better and nicer gun than I am at shooting, so it will
Yeah,
outshoot me any day. um,
and
but
that's a important thing to remember is when you start getting into this, until you start getting really comfortable with your fundamentals, is not throwing the baby out with the bathwater kind of a
mhm,
thing if you're having some struggles. and it's, oh man, I need a new barrel. This barrel's, well, is it the barrel or is it you? And so
Yeah.
managing those expectations for that setup out gate. I mean, it might be a hammer, but there might be some little things that you could tweak here and there that could improve your ability to shoot that rifle.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And yeah, it's, we're talking about wandering zeros just for people again. This is something I've learned pretty recently. But essentially your quality of scope is super important. Obviously there's other things that go into it, but scopes literally will lose their zero by getting banged around, or even just, I've seen some people that just twisted turrets and then came back and shot another group at what was supposedly their zero, and they were 6 inches low or high.
Yeah.
And it's something that can happen. So definitely, test your gear, trust your equipment, and that way when you're out there, if you are shooting a match or you're hunting, you're not worried about your gear being off. You don't have that sit in the back of your head. Yeah.
And a
Well,
lot of
sweet.
that too
And
is the rings.
yeah.
Rings are super important. Your
What rings do you
arrow's
run?
I've been using the Warren Mountain Tech. Their
Okay.
Skyline. So it's a one piece
Nice.
mount, so kind of less to go wrong, I think. But
Yeah,
it's
I want to ask you
really
about
nice.
that, the 1 versus 2, because I've got, so these are going on I'm building a coyote gun. But I've got these right here. I don't know if you've heard of RPM.
Oh yeah, I had
Yeah.
those on my competition rifle last year. I just
Yeah.
needed something a little bit higher.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
Warden Mountain Tech, their Skyline Precision mount that I use is a 1.39 inch
Okay.
mount. That rough,
This is a 1
the
inch.
the RPMs I think I had were a 126 was the highest it can go.
Yeah, that's his
and,
high.
and yeah, and I needed something just a little bit higher, but those were great. I had no issues with those. Those things are great rings. I
Yeah.
highly recommend those.
They've got a
rings.
bubble. Is that allowed in Idaho?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
just being a smart ass. But no, it the rings is definitely that's important. Trusting your glass, having good quality glass. A lot of glass will look good and across the board until you get into snow where you've got like some reflection or low light. Those two things kind of that's where, a Steiner, higher end, or even just a Leupold in general. Steiner, again, I've never looked through a call is. I know a lot of people that are really good at shooting that really like them. And then I'm thinking blue Zeiss is another one. And then I'm assuming Night Force. I see them everywhere on people that shoot better than me, but
honestly, I'm not. Night Force is a good scope. It's just not the most impressive glass. I think you're paying more for the rugged reliability side of things for Night Force rather than their glass.
So they're like Glock of the
yeah,
the Glocks
honestly,
of the scope world.
Yeah,
Beat the
I
crap out of
tested
them.
one and hunted with one for a season, and it didn't impress me the glass quality. Obviously, your turrets, the reliability is second to none. That's where they get the reputation, but they've never been one that I've ever looked through and gone, "Oh my gosh, this glass is amazing." So
Yeah.
I've
I guess I
seen.
left Swaro out of there. Swaro's up there with Zeiss and
So Collis is a sister company of Swirl, so they're
okay,
just kind of
that
their
makes sense.
competition side of things. Yeah.
It's a cooler name.
Yeah, yeah. They're very
That's
similar.
awesome.
Collis is a great scope. Yeah, I really like Collis. They're just, if you're willing to pay that kind of a price tag for them, I'm not personally, but
yeah. Awesome. I'm gonna pause real quick. I need to go.
Yep.
We've got Puppy out there. He's whining, needing to go out. So take a
Sounds
quick
good,
little
buddy.
break.
I'll be here.
I'm gonna have to cut that out. You're not drinking Phorm energy. Okay.
Dude, you can't buy them up here.
That's
I've
why
never
your
seen them.
mustache isn't as thick as it could be. Imagine.
Dude, I need it. Yeah, those guys
all right,
are
so
good dudes.
yeah, no, for sure. Okay, so back on glass, we talked about rings. I mean, I know Seekins makes some really good rings.
Yes.
You said Warren, is that WARN?
WARNE.
Okay, WARNE. I've never had experience with them, but I see them and I kind of get skeptical when I see something everywhere. whether they're good or not, or there's just really good marketing. But Hawk, is that another one? Hawk Precision, is that one that you've had? It's Hawk with an E at the
Um,
end.
I've never used those ones.
Okay.
I know Hawk makes some optics and stuff too. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't know if they're making them in house.
Okay.
Burns Mountain Tech rings.
Okay.
I've had really good luck with their Skyline Precision mounts. They're just a little bit heavier than their Mountain Techs.
Mm,
Night Force has some really good their 4-screw rings because they got a 6-screw and a 4-screw. Their 4-screw rings I've had really good luck with. The Loophole Mark 4 line or
mm.
Mark 5 line. They're higher end, not their gosh, what is it? Their backcountry or
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
line. Yeah, I've never touched those. I tend to spend a lot more on rings than most people
Yeah.
because that's what's holding your scope
Trying to
down to
think.
your action and everything. So
I don't remember what the ones are on this. That's my 6 Creedmoor there, but
yeah,
they're Loophole. They do good for, at least for hunting.
yeah,
Put a little blue Loctite on there and
yeah.
make sure they
Get
don't
them
wiggle
set up.
loose.
Get them torqued properly.
Mm,
I used to lap everything, but I kind of just got away from that and just bought higher quality rings, and I've never had any issues. Sequins rings, anything Sequins touches
yeah.
is top notch in my book. Great company, great products. So if you
Yeah.
buy Sequin stuff, but yeah, those RPM rings, great rings. Dude,
Yeah.
I would
I've had
not.
them on. I need to set my thermal, talking of thermals, on my AR. I have one of their one-piece mounts for that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then I've had one set of their rings on my 6.5 PRC, and then I've got this for the 22 Creedmoor that I'm building right now for coyotes and for plinking. So anyway, yeah, it's again
Yeah,
just rings. You want to get some good quality rings, and obviously Rodger's a great resource to ask. He uses his stuff and beats the crap out of it, runs it over with ATVs and stuff. So if they've lasted for Rodger, then they'll be good enough for you. Awesome. So rings, glass, we talked about that. Let's see. Oh, MOA or mill.
that's a hot button topic. I think a lot of it depends at what your intention is behind
Mm,
that scope. And I get that a lot with guys is like, well, I know I've always used MOA. I'm like, okay, are you going to take the time to learn? It's all the same. It's an angular
mm,
measurement. MOA is actually a finer angular measurement than
mm,
mills, but it's still just an angular measurement. For me, I like mills personally, just because I know my data at 400 yards is 2 mils. Like it's easier for me to remember 2 mils over, 6.4 MOA, or
mm,
it ended up rounded up to 6.5 or whatever. Like it's easier for me to remember those smaller numbers. And then there's wind formulas and there's different kind of cheat codes that you can use. Mils a little bit easier than MOA, like finding your gun number for quick wind calculations and stuff and solutions.
mm,
But a lot of it depends. I think if you're hunting with guys that are MOA guys, like, and you're not gonna compete, or even if you are,
mm,
you're just kind of competing here and there. Like MOA is fine. I wouldn't look past an MOA. One thing I see in the competition side of things when guys do use MOA scopes is for the longer range engagements, you're gonna get close to a full revolution on your turret.
mm,
And so I see guys going back to zero the wrong way. So they'll go back to zero instead of all the way
mm,
back down to zero. And so the next stage, you'll see there'll be a full revolution up and just completely missing the target, not seeing where it impacts. And if they're not in a team or a skills environment, then they don't know where it's hitting.
mm,
I've seen that several times with MOA. It's really hard, or excuse me, mills. It's really hard to get a full revolution
mm.
up on even some of the longer range engagements because it is a more coarser angular measurement, if you want to call it
Gotcha.
that. So, but a lot of it depends.
Yeah.
I've gone back and forth enough where I can talk MOA to guys. Like if my wind hold's going to be, let's say, half a mil, I'm just going to tell these guys, hey, hold a minute and a half of wind because it's basically, and it's not exact, but it's basically a third of an inch per tenth of a mil. It's actually like 0.36. But if you think about it in a third of an inch versus a quarter of an inch,
Mm,
so I would just take, that five, so the 5/10 of a mil times three and get a minute and a half or, minute and three quarters, kind of a thing for giving guys wind holds. So
Yeah.
it's easy enough to do, but it's not exactly, if you don't do it a lot, I would stick with what you know and what
Yeah.
your people are hunting with. Just that way you guys are all speaking the same language.
Yeah, I'm transitioning all my stuff over to mill, like future builds and forward, just because, especially ones that I'm going to be using in any competition scenario. That way, I can just do it all kind of hunting and competition the same. I figured, and again, using a ballistics calculator too is really nice because you don't have to keep it all in your head if you're in a hunting scenario or whatever. But I do want to get into that because you've learned, obviously, you're set up well enough that um, you can you can hit bears on the run at 6, 7, 800 yards. That's insane, and it's awesome that you can do that. Some people can't even hit a a target at that distance. And so, what I guess you just hit on that saying, keep your stuff consistent so that you can learn, your whether trajectory or whatever of your cartridge. How much do you practice to where you've got that cartridge dialed ready for hunting season so that when you take that shot, if you know, hey, this is, we'll say, I don't know, 2 days left in the hunt, this bear that you finally is coming out into the light, just barely gets spooked, and you realize he's heading for the tree line or whatever, and you're confident enough to shoot it at distance while it's running. How long did it take you to get to that point, and how much practice do you do to get to that point?
Yeah, it's really hard to practice running shots and just doing it. I mean, I grew up shooting coyotes, and most of the
Hmm.
time they were on the run. So that and
Hmm.
squirrels. So you kind of figure out lead and stuff. But a lot of it is you can look at your ballistic programs. A lot of them will give you time of flight, and there's ways that you could calculate the speed, and basically the time of flight that it's going to take. Everything that, well, honestly, a lot of it's just doing it, shooting coyotes on the run and stuff. The one bear that I hit at 600 on the run was, I already
Hmm.
had a bullet in him, and so I was gonna lead him and give it a chance and hit him. Hit him really good. And the first bear that I hit, he wasn't really running; he was kind of on a jog. I knew it was just under 500 yards. It was like 465, and I knew that time of flight was about a half a second, so it just kind
Yeah.
of timed him going, I guess, quickly, and hit him really good too. I hit a buck on the run at 400. Didn't lead him enough, but sometimes I would say lead on the front end, like more than
Hmm.
you think you need, because if you miss, you're going to miss in front of him. If you time it right, you're going to square him up instead of maybe not leading enough, and then you hit him back. But if you get a bullet in something and you're trying to get another one in it as it's going away, any shot on it at that point is a good shot, in my opinion. Just trying
Yeah,
to get him.
no, I definitely understand that. I guess for let's address kind of preemptively the people out there that might say that that is an unethical shot, right? And I've had people say that about bedded animals too.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't understand that. I'm like, if I was to die, I kind of hope to either be mauled by a grizzly really fast or die in my sleep, like something super exciting,
yeah.
or while I'm sleeping, right? So I don't understand that argument. I still haven't heard a good reason why. Um,
I think a
other than
lot of
it's a
people.
smaller target.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that is, their vitals can be compressed. Their bigger bone structures from their legs and everything are kind of tucked in there, so everything can be compressed. But I shot a buck bedded at 465, and it just crushed him. Like it's such a good
Yeah.
shot because you have time, right? You have time to build a good position. You have time to do all this stuff because they're
Yeah.
not walking
They're
away
not
and things like
feeding
that. So I
and
think
yeah.
think you have it's a easier shot to make because you have the time built in
Mm,
to them being embedded, that there's a chance that if you wait for it to get up, and if you have a good clear shot, like, it's great, but if it's obstructed, you might have to wait for him to stand up. But there's nothing that says that he's going to stand up and stand there. Like, he might stand up and start walking away or run away depending on how he spooks. So that buck I elected to shoot bedded just because the only opportunity I had, if he would have stood up, then there would have been tree branches in front of his
mm,
vitals. And I was either banking on him coming towards me and getting away from those trees, or that was about the only shot that I would have had. So I either took that shot with him bedded and took all the time to get my wind and get everything set up perfectly, or chance that he's going to just get up and walk off the side of the hill off the other side and I would never see him again. So it's can be a calculated decision, but I don't think it's a bad decision depending on the shot presentation you're afforded.
So I mean, yeah, I would agree with that. I guess what for you is it a question here? Because again, for me personally, if it's not my tag, I don't really care as long as you feel confident in the shot. But um, what would make you not feel like it was an ethical shot to take one on the run?
Um, I don't know. That's a tough question because everybody's ethics are their own. Um,
Yeah,
you know, with coyotes, they're kind of you get a bullet in them anyway, right?
yeah.
But with a deer, bear, things like that, I think they have a little bit higher standard in people's moral book. Um, I don't know. I guess your ability, your confidence in being able to make that shot. I mean, you probably see it during general deer season where I hunt. Like you see it a lot where deer are running away and guys are taking 10, 12 shots at it, like as it's running away. And you hear the pauses while they get more ammo and load up and they keep shooting at this thing. And I'm like, what the heck? They're not even hitting
Hmm.
near it, you know? And so I have a hard time when people are like, "Oh, that's unethical." I'm like, "Man, these guys are out here shooting offhand at deer at 200, 300 yards, and I'm laying down prone and hit this thing, on the run the first shot. Like, what is unethical? It's tough. Like some people would say that buck I shot last year was an unethical distance, but that thing I hit it twice at the distance I did, and it died within a minute, less than a minute. He
Mm,
was dead. So and it was like a 3-inch group. Um,
yeah.
and I'll just say it, I haven't really been public with it, but it was the first shot I hit it at 1,312 yards, and the second shot he was a little bit closer at about 1,300, and it's both of them were
That's a long shot.
yeah, and it ended up it was a calculated kind of risk, I guess, on my part. We had been hunting this canyon area. It's actually the same draw that I shot a buck a couple years prior at 1,007. And this is a different cartridge, different bullet, obviously different year, but it was right before dark. The winds had calmed down significantly, so there was no wind at my position. We were able to get it on the spotter on it, so I got it all on film and I made a conservative wind call. So I held for a uphill, or excuse me, I held for a downhill thermal, just being that late in the evening, almost dark. Figured maybe the thermals were coming down. Really hard to see any vegetation moving. So I was like 3 to 4 miles an hour on the wind. At that distance, I had to calculate for the Coriolis, my spin drift and everything. And so I held very conservative. So if I and the buck was facing to the left. So if I got the wind call perfect, I would have hammered him because like it's no more than this, wind. There's no chance that it's more than this wind. So I had no risk of it drifting
Hmm.
towards his rear and gut shooting this deer. It's like, but if I miss the wind call and the wind's going the other way or it's less than I'm guessing, I'm gonna miss in front of this deer completely. And hopefully I see dirt splash and can make a quick correction in my use my reticle to measure
Yeah.
over, make a quick correction, and that's ended up what happened. I didn't hit it the first shot. I had to make a correction off of a miss, but I was able to, um, with that scope and everything and that cartridge. Like the time of flight on that bullet was like 1.8 seconds, which is a little weird thing when you like shoot and you're like waiting, then it impacts. But I was able to see the impact through my scope, measured quickly, loaded another round, and had another round sent within 10 seconds or less than 10 seconds and hit this buck perfect. Knocked him down. He got back up, kind of wobbled around a little bit closer. Like he was dead on his feet, but because he still presented a shot, I sent another one with the same wind hold, just less a tenth of a mil, just because he came a little bit closer and hit him again, and he was dead within a minute, less than a minute. And I had no idea I was even in the same area,
Hmm.
everything. And um, and when I was skinning out that buck, I had about a 3-inch group on his shoulder at 1,300 yards. So like that's
Wow.
that's I wouldn't say that was unethical. I mean, right? Like it wasn't a Hail Mary, it wasn't a chance. Like it was
No.
a calculated decision on my part, and I feel like I was as confident as shooting at that distance as some people would be at 300 yards with their duplex reticle holding hair and trying to shoot a
Mhm.
deer.
Holding
So
hair. I like that.
yeah,
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, some people that is how they. I don't know. It's funny because we get into the nitty gritty of it in these small groups, right? I mean, a 3-inch group at 1,300 yards. I mean, just some quick math. I mean, that's like that's like a point 0.1 inch or a point 0.1 MOA group, right? I mean, it's a uh, that's insane. That's awesome. Awesome setup. Obviously, the rifle is dialed into your cartridge. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I don't know if I've actually never shot past 1,200 on
yeah.
anything, let alone, I mean, a deer. So that's awesome that you were able to do that. I wonder, it's funny that so many people get so critical, and that's why you don't share the distance until now, which I appreciate you sharing that, because it's one of those things that we get concerned about other people, how they're going to take that. Right. It's like if you shot, I tell someone I shoot an elk at 80 yards, or I shot my deer this year at 80 yards, and they freak out, or they're like, "Oh, dude, that's awesome."
Yeah.
It's one of the two. You never know, right? But it really does come down to skill level. You're practicing, your cartridge in this case, or in a bow setup, your arrows and your bow. You know what you can and can't do. So that's awesome. What made you want that deer so bad?
So it was the biggest buck that we had seen in like 3 or 4 days,
There you
and
go. Yeah.
we had a bunch of tags to fill, and I was the
He
only one
was.
of the. So he was a little 4 point. I thought it was just a 3 point. When I went up there, he had a little crab on the back, and
Okay.
actually, my official scorer is my 5-year-old son. At 4 at the
Nice.
time, I showed him, and I was like, "How many points
So
are
he
on
was
this
he was a
antler?" And he's
200
like,
incher.
4. Yeah, he goes, "It was 4. It's a 4 point." I was like, "All right, sold." So
Perfect.
it testing out bullets and cartridges and different things for writing articles. It's you got to push the limits so you have the knowledge to speak on it, right?
Mhm.
And instead of it being a theoretical thing, it's like, no, I've actually seen this happen. And it's a reason why there's a reason why I put those bullets on the buck's shoulder and not, behind the shoulder. A, it was a burger, so it likes the hip bone, and B, the distance that it was, that terminal velocity, like I said, about 1650 at that impact, and I knew it needed to hit bone. So that's why when I made that correction, I made it to the shoulder and not behind the shoulder. And I sent it fast enough to where the wind wouldn't have changed in time. Like it was a calculated decision. It wasn't an accident. And so I think that's where, I built this rifle from scratch I think I finished it in March last year. And before I shot that buck, I had 450 rounds on that gun
Oh,
alone in that barrel.
I can't
And
even, I
so
mean, because you reload all that too. I can't even
yeah,
imagine. I haven't shot 450 rounds in a year out of multiple rifles,
yeah,
let alone 450 rounds out of one rifle. I mean, and that's where I kind of laugh at when people are like, "Oh, you shoot your barrel out in 2,000 rounds and it's 50 less than, Creedmoor versus PRC." I'm like, guys, are you really going to shoot 2,000 rounds? Like, you're getting hung up on the wrong
people are,
stuff.
yeah.
Well, I
But
was
it,
gonna say you
yeah,
you are different, or competition people are different, right? But they're not the ones complaining about barrel life. It's the ones that are like, "Well, I chose this caliber because." Blah. I'm like, "Well, when's the last time you shot your rifle?" "Oh, 6 months ago, I shot a 3-shot group and I zeroed it." It's like it's
yeah,
a
and
little
that's
different.
honestly that's totally spot on. And
Mm,
I look at barrels like tires on a car; they're expendable. Like I'm That's why I don't take like I get them spiral fluted. I usually like to run a heavy contour steel barrel and get it spiral fluted, but I won't get it Cerakoted. I won't spend the money for that. I'll rattle can it if I don't want it
hmm
stainless color. I'll rattle can it because I know like I don't want to spend the $200 to get it Cerakoted because I know it's
Yeah.
going to come off in a year. So
What?
that's
Where do you get your barrels?
that was an Ace barrel. Uh, I think I bought it from Red Hawk Rifles
Mm.
online. I
And
kind of
barrels,
tried.
even those super nice ones, but they're a couple $100 if that.
Yeah, for a blank, a steel blank. Usually, I think those ones are $300. Bartline, Benchmark, Krieger, Ilja. Like you're getting up there in some really good barrels. $450 for a blank, and I get them spun by my gunsmith here in Caldwell, Spartan Precision Rifles. Mark Soule. He's been spinning barrels for years, competition rifles. Like he's kind of one of the best in the world at
Mhm.
doing so. So like starting off with a really good barrel and a really good cut chamber goes a long ways. Like this, even though this gun is a Wildcat, that there's really not load information out there for it. It was the easy button. It was really easy to get to shoot really well, which is evident by the 20 shot group I shot. And so it's just knowing the capabilities of that gun too is what was really easy for me to make
Mm.
the decision to take that shot. Was I had really good faith in that round or that cartridge, that load that I had, that rifle, like everything was really nice.
That's awesome. Awesome. Well, I kind of want to, unless there's something else you want to bring up, I want to wrap up with kind of from your perspective, if there's someone that is getting into, rifle hunting and they want to take their rifle out to the range, maybe stretch it to 1,000, but maybe not. Well, we'll say 1,000 just as an arbitrary number, for fun on target, but they're planning on hunting right around 500, maybe 600 yards, but 500 and in. Um, and they don't want to spend a ton of money. What would you recommend they spend their money more on, a rifle or glass? Like if they have a $1,500 budget, we'll say.
Dude, that's tough. So when I started and I got that Remington 700P, like everybody was like, you need to spend twice what the gun was on optics, right? So I ended up spending $2,000 on a scope just because I thought that's what I needed.
The
Granted, that
arbitrary
was
number.
yeah, and granted that was 10 plus years ago. So
I think back then it
it
was pretty accurate. I
yeah,
mean, yeah.
things have changed. Like yeah, to get a and really at the time the glass didn't matter as much to me as it was the repeatability of the optic
Mm,
and the tracking and everything like that. So anymore, like you can get some really good optics for you know under a grand,
mhm.
uh, and so
Let's say
you're gonna
Leupold
end up
just came out with their, because they had kind of a price gap between their VX3, which is good,
yeah,
and their VX5s, and they just came out with a
yeah,
VX4 to kind
I
of
saw
fit
that,
that.
yeah,
But anyway, I just threw a budget build together. I threw a VX3 on there.
yeah.
Anyway, we'll get into that in a minute. So you're saying, $1,500, you're going to spend a little bit more on the glass than the rifle, or more on the rifle
Um,
nowadays than.
Honestly, a lot has changed in factory guns. Like you used to have to buy or get something built by a gunsmith to get the level of accuracy that now you can get out of a factory gun. And
Yeah.
Seekins, I love their stuff, but if
Oh
you're
yeah.
under that $1,500, like you're probably not going to touch a PH3, which is a great rifle. My problem is most guys will enjoy it. I've never ran into somebody that's done that and gone, man, I don't like it. It's kind of like a bow, right? Like most guys that want to get into archery hunting, like, would you be better off, with a box, the old RTS, the old ready to shoot package from
Mhm.
PSE from when I worked in a bow shop? Like, would you be better off with that? And then you're going to end up going, oh man, I want a better sight. Oh, I want a better
Mhm.
rest. Oh, I want a better quiver. Oh man, now I want a better bow. Like, it's kind of almost a buy once, cry once, because you're going to keep the value in that. So if you do not like it and want to sell it, like it's going to
Mhm.
retain its value. So I would try to get guys to save a little bit more money and buy something a little bit more quality. I mean, you can get a Ruger American Gen 2 that's going to
That group that I
yeah.
showed you was a Gen 2 Predator 6.5
Yeah.
Creedmoor.
They have their Prairie now, which is a little bit heavier contour barrel. Like I said, I like a little bit heavier rifle. It's going to be
Mhm.
easier to shoot. It's generally going to be a more accurate gun just because the barrel is going to be a little bit stiffer, but you're going to shoot it better. Just a little bit more weight on your rifle is going to reduce the recoil, which is so that barrel will move before the bullet exits the
Mhm.
barrel. So the least amount of movement that you can get in generally a heavier rifle is going to move less. So
Yeah, you bring that up, dude. That's something else too that I didn't even think about, but it makes complete sense that there's harmonics in the barrel
yeah,
that it just like as soon as that rifle goes off, as soon as the cartridge goes off, that barrel is doing this number right here, and
yeah.
as the bullet's trying to spin, so it's like, dude, there's
There's
so
a lot
much
going
that
on.
goes
So
into it.
a
Yeah.
little bit more, and that's generally why guys are like, "Oh, lighter weight rifles aren't as accurate."
Mm,
Well, if you had them clamped in a barrel vise and you just shot them, they're going to be the same level of
mm,
accuracy if everything's equal. But it's just because they're lighter. I got a guy had a Weatherby 307 CT Alpine and 7 PRC. I told him to get it in a 6.5 PRC because that's going to be a lot easier to shoot a little bit less recoiling cartridge in a lighter
mm-hmm.
platform. But he got it in a 7 PRC, got it, put a can
I
on
bet
it.
he loves to shoot that.
Dude, he was like, man, I can't get anything under 2 inches with this thing. Like, I'm gonna send it back. Like, it's not
Mm,
shooting good. And I was like, let's pause for a second. And I got it from him and shot it. I threw a big old nasty muzzle brake on it, big old heavy bipod, heavy scope. Like, and I added a couple pounds to this rifle, different accessories, and just threw some handloads together and went out and shot, a 3/4 inch 7-shot group with it. And I was like, it's because it's a lightweight gun, it's hard to shoot.
or you could film him and show him his flinch, and then
Well, that too.
you know?
There's a lot of that, and that's
Mm-hmm,
that's why I like shooting suppressed over a brake, even though the brake
mm-hmm.
does knock off more recoil. But just the percussion, I always catch
Yeah.
myself when I videotape myself closing my eyes as the gun's going off, not because of the recoil, but because of that percussion, that
Mm-hmm.
wave of dust and everything else that's coming back at me. I'm just kind of preparing myself for it. And so it's like when I shoot suppressed, I stay open the whole time and you watch the bullet flight through the scope. And so I would much rather have a two pound heavier rifle in the same cartridge than something lighter. 2 pounds is 2 pounds. It's going to be a little bit
Well, I'll
harder
just
to
say it
carry, but it's
too.
going to be
I
better to
know,
shoot.
I know you're not saying it, but I'll say it. If you can't lose 2 pounds off your gut to carry a 2 pound heavier rifle,
And that's
what are
always
you
what I
doing?
lose 2 pounds
Like,
off my butt before I can lose 2 pounds off my
mm-hmm,
rifle, or
mm-hmm,
the gear you take. It's easier to you're going to spend less money getting a 2 pound lighter sleep system, whether that's your tent, sleeping bag, pad combo, than to lose a couple pounds off of a rifle to go to titanium, this to all this lightweight stuff. You're going to spend a lot of money where you can get, and it's not going to shoot as good. Like,
yeah,
granted, guys can get those guns to shoot really well. I've seen it, but
mm-hmm,
for the average person, you're going to shoot a rifle that's 2 pounds heavier, way better. You're going to shoot a rifle that's 2 pounds lighter with the same, everything being equal.
yeah. So
But,
lose 2 pounds off your gut, get an
yeah,
initial Ascent pack, you'll be happy.
yeah. But so you're going to get better because you can have a sub MOA gun, but if you're a 3 MOA shooter, like, or if you know the math, like I'll say, yeah, you might have an MOA gun, but you're a mil shooter, which
Mm-hmm,
is 3.6 inches. So it's like you're going to get more out of you getting better at shooting than trying to buy a $7,000 gun set up and then going, oh, this thing doesn't shoot. Well, it's the nut behind the bolt kind of a thing. You need not the arrow for you archery guys, but
yeah,
there's
yeah,
there's ways you can do it, but there's no substitute for trigger time. You can do a lot
yeah.
of dry fire stuff, but setting up your rifle from the beginning properly is going to help you
Mm,
a lot. Um, and I have my own opinions on how a rifle should be set up that it might be different from everybody else, but there's pros to the way I do it, which I've shown guys that are struggling set up the rifle a certain way, and then it becomes easier for them or more consistent. So
nice. Okay, cool. So you've got okay. So we threw, we'll say sub $1,000 on the rifle. You threw out a couple of good ones. I know the Tika is a good one. Ruger American is a good one. As far as being able to go out and shoot rifle on the range and go hunting with. Glass wise, throw out, I don't know, 2 or 3 scopes that you'd say are sub, I'd say $800 or less to throw on that rifle.
yeah, actually the scope that's on this rifle next to me, it's an Athlon Helios BTR Gen 2. I did a review on it for my buddy Gabe at Backwoods Pursuits, and that thing has been great for me.
Mm,
It's a 4 to 20 by 50. It's got locking turrets on it. It's got a zero stop. It's got really good glass. It's got a decent reticle on it, and it's tracked really well and held zero for me. And you could find that thing on sale for, $599, $600, something like that. Like it's
cool.
a really good deal for what you get on that. And it's first focal plane. So a lot of Leupold stuff, their VX lines, it's all second focal plane, um, which
Yep.
I don't really like. I used to shoot for Steiner, and it upset me. Their Predator line was a second focal plane scope, and they were releasing like an 8 to 32 or 6 to 32 or something
Wow.
like that, like a 32 top end second focal plane scope with a BDC reticle, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous because for those BDC reticles to be accurate, it's most of the time got to be on full power. And even that buck I shot at 1,300 yards, I was at 12 power. Like
Mm,
I never hunt on
max
max
power.
power. The only time I use max power is for just zeroing groups at 100 kind of a thing. But everything else I'd shoot, that integral hunter match I just did at the beginning of the day, I set my power on 10, set my parallax on 600, and just don't touch it the rest of the match. It's in less than your power, but to do that, you need a lower powered second focal plane scope, or you're going to be. I hunted with a VX5, the 3 of 15, with their Winplex reticle. 15 power is not bad. I wouldn't go much over 15 or 16 for a second focal plane reticle, but their VX4 3 of 12 would be a solid option. Even their
Hmm.
was a 4.5 to 16 or 4 to 16, something like that is
Yeah.
it's probably as high as I would go with a second focal plane scope.
I think I'm trying to remember what I've got on. It was weird. I will tell you, just going back to the straight crosshairs after
Yeah.
shooting all the nicer scopes, like working on this budget build video. When when I pulled it up first, I was like, hold on.
What am I looking at?
Like there's just a crosshair. There's no numbers. There's nothing.
Yeah, if you're
But
going to get like one of their line, their TMR or their Winplex
mm,
reticle and a second focal plane is a good option. I would definitely get something that you could hold wind,
mhm,
and you can do math and not be at full power and still use the reticle, but you got to make sure you're on the correct power that's basically doubling
yeah.
your wind hold. So for that TMR reticle or the Winplex, I think they're 1 MOA, wind holds that are in there. So if you're at
One,
half power, they're going to be 2 MOA. So just
yeah.
having to do the math is tough for guys sometimes.
And what he's talking about, guys, first focal plane versus second focal plane. I mean, the for the dummies like me that are just learning it, not super technical, first focal plane, essentially when you zoom in on your scope, it's the spacing, the gapping between the lines and your windage and your elevation is going to expand as well to kind of go along with that magnification. Versus second focal plane, it stays the same. You just zoom into it, but the gapping, it doesn't expand as you zoom in. So that's why he's saying if you're going to get second focal plane, you got to know the math behind it if you're going to use that for wind calls or elevation, holdovers, whatever you're going to use it for. Personally, on those, I dial because I want to use the crosshairs. For I'm not cool enough to do a wind call. I know on my pronghorn, I guess you'd call it a wind call. I just guesstimated 20-mile-an-hour winds because we had a freaking storm coming in. It was flat ground, 450 yards. So I just kind of held front of shoulder because it was facing to the left. So I kind of held front of shoulder. It did drift as much as I called for. So I nailed the shoulder. But yeah, those are important things to know. So know your equipment. Again, if you're going to go do competition stuff or whatever, start choosing if you're going to do MOA or mill, why you're going to do it. There's no wrong answer. You just, once you choose what you're going to do, kind of stick with that so you can get to where, Rodger's at, where he just can quick math it. Because it just makes sense in his head.
And so I'll give you a little. And that, so you've heard of the gun number, and that's
Mhm.
usually referenced. So for guys that aren't aware of it, you can go with your ballistic calculator and type in, make sure your environmentals and everything are the same. You take off your spin drift on most ballistic calculators. You can, hit a button that takes off the spin drift and use a 90-degree wind and take and start increasing that wind until your solution for your wind at 600 yards is zero point 0.6 mils. And so at 500 yards, it'll be 0.5 at 7. And it's not completely linear. Once you start getting past like 700,
Yeah.
you might end up having to add a tenth. But it's a good way to make a quick reference for most 6.5 Creedmoors. It's like a 6-minute or a 6-mile-an-hour gun. For some of your magnums, it could be 8, 9, depending on your density, altitude, your elevation, and temperature and stuff. But you can do that with MOA. There's a little bit more math involved, and it's generally a higher gun number. So what I'll do is I'll do the same thing and start increasing my wind speed at 90 degrees until my wind hold is half of my yardage. So at 600 yards, at what point mile-an-hour wind is my 600-yard wind 3 minutes, 500 yards, 5.5 minutes. So you see how that can play out that way. And generally for most guns that are 6-mile-an-hour guns for mils, you'll end up being probably 10 or 11 miles an hour for MOA side of things. So it's for your situation. You said your buck was, or that antelope was what, 450 yards or so, you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So,
flat ground, about 20-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah. So if you say your gun number in MOA was 10 at 450 yards, so if it was a 10-mile-an-hour wind, you would have been holding, what, 2.25 minutes? But if it was 20, you would just double that 2.25 to 4.5 minutes. So it's a quick way to do a wind estimation with a wind hold without having to whip out your calculator and everything, and do that on the fly and give yourself a pretty good opportunity. And then if you have a duplex reticle, you could figure out, 2 MOA at 400 yards is 8 inches. Okay, well, the size, general size of a deer and everything. So you're like, okay, if I'm trying to put this bullet behind his front shoulder, 8 inches about the front of his chest, 8 inches back is probably the last rib. So, you're giving yourself a point of reference to aim at without a, hash marks in your reticle, just a duplex, just knowing kind of the anatomy of your animal, and being able to extrapolate that 8 inches on a deer at however yardage. So
Yeah.
it takes a little bit more thinking than just holding on this hash mark in a reticle, but it's doable, and I've seen guys do it. But just a quick way to do that.
Yeah, there you go, guys. Quick math.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, I guess, is there anything else we haven't touched? I mean, I know there's a lot we haven't touched on, but anything else important that you want to bring up?
If you've got any questions about intramural hunter stuff, like, I love talking about it. I'm super glad that you're getting into that stuff. Like, you're going to come away from your first match and go, oh my gosh, this is so much fun. And just the 100 rounds that you'll shoot during that match, you're going to be so much better off, especially your positional type of shooting. You said you're doing the one in Price or Vernal?
Vernal is the one that I'm planning on. Might do the one in Price as well.
And those, I haven't been to those venues, but I would imagine, just knowing that country, you're probably going to do a lot more like tripod shooting and maybe prone. I know this one that we just did in Hammett, Idaho, is real rocky, so we used the rocks a lot. But I don't know how that country is out in Vernal and Price, but I think it's pretty deserty, if I remember right.
Yeah.
So you're probably not going to have
until you get super high elevation, which I don't think it's going to be up there. It's going to be pretty open, sagebrush, maybe some mesquite, stuff like that.
Yeah. So high bipod stuff, tripod rear as a rear support, or just straight tripod front. Probably going to be doing that a lot. So I'd be practicing that.
I'm just trying to find someone that I can hire to run around with an umbrella to keep me shaded, because I'm going to get burnt.
That and the dust, I would imagine that time of year, the dust is going to be bad. But.
Yeah. But no, I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited I'm still waiting on my action, which is, I'm kind of getting to that point where I'm like, I need to get the action so that I can, so I can get to shooting, because I need to get to know this rifle a bit
Well, you
better.
said you have a 6.5 Creed, right?
Well, that's what so I don't have the action yet.
I thought you said you had a Ruger American.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. So I've got a Ruger American. I was doing a video on that, just a budget build, trying to keep everything sub $1,500. And it's, it's turning out that group I was super happy with, but no, my build is going to be an Aero Solus build. I've
Solid.
got all the parts and pieces except for the action.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
those are
So
solid actions. That's what my partner, my teammate, we shoot teams and he shoots an
mm.
arrow. Um, MDT
for the
chassis.
for the price point, the Aero Solus action is one that I've been telling a lot of people about. It's got a lot of higher end features for without the cost.
Yeah.
You can exchange the bolt face. If you end up choosing a different caliber that you want to go with down the road, things like that. But it's
Yeah.
smooth. They've got the lightweight versus the standard. Like they've got a whole bunch of options. And I've loved any AR builds that I've done with them. Their chassis is actually, it's not identical, but it's almost identical to the MDT.
Yep. They're ACC.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a solid.
So
no,
yeah.
So if you don't get that action in, I would still go shoot that match with that Ruger.
Oh, I've got other guns I could use.
Okay.
For sure. I wanted to have like a match specific, but I'm sure I'll get it here in March is kind of the goal. And get things going with that. But yeah, that I could take the Ruger or the as my 6.5 PRC shoots pretty well too. So I could take that one. Yeah. Anyway, I guess last but not least, favorite, obviously you've got your hand load caliber, but favorite box ammo caliber for, we'll say, between 20 to 22 inch barrel, because I'm hoping everyone's going to start shooting suppressed, because they should. It definitely
agreed.
changed the game. But yeah, the 20 to 22 inch barrel, lighter weight, I'd say maybe in that 12 pounds with everything on it or less. Range, what caliber would you recommend for, we'll say, elk, deer, and smaller?
Dude, I'm a big fan of the 6.5 calibers, specifically the 6.5 PRC. I think it's for what you get in that cartridge with the lower recoil and the great ballistic coefficient and heavier for caliber bullets. Like the bullet selection out there for 6.5 is amazing. You got a really good factory offerings with the 6.5 PRC, like this. I think I brought it over here at one point, but this little 20-inch 6.5 PRC that I built, like even with 147 ELDM going 27.75, like that's 1,000-yard deer gun.
Oh yeah,
in my book. Obviously the
so
shooter
these two are the
dependent.
two
Yeah.
that I'm messing around with to see. Actually, on the back of here, I just noticed this. They actually have kind of a display. Obviously, it's from their stats, but the 1800 versus what is that 2600? What it's supposed to look like. So that's pretty cool.
And the ELDMs are going to expand or disrupt a little bit easier than a ELDX. They have the interlock in there. It's got a little bit more of a tapered jacket. So I like to stay 1600 and higher on a ELDM, which that 147, even going in this 20-inch barrel at 27.75, that's going to crush everything. I would have no problem shooting an elk. I built my mom a 20-inch 6.5 Creedmoor shooting 147s, and she crushed an elk with that. Her first year, she's shot a deer with it. Like, I really, really enjoy that caliber 6.5 specifically, and then the cartridge of a 6.5 PRC, especially for hunting, and you're going to be sub 12 pounds.
Yep.
Like, you're just, the recoil that you're going to get versus, say, a 7 PRC in the same weight.
It's significant.
It is very significant. So you're going to shoot it a lot better. You're going to enjoy shooting it better. And, the BCs of those heavy for caliber bullets, whether that's the 156, the 147, Sierra just came out with their 153, their Game King, Hip Game King. I haven't had a lot of success with the Nosler Accubon long ranges, the 150s. They're finicky. Bonded bullets for me are just really finicky, but there's really good copper offerings. I'm hearing that Barnes is going to come out with something. They have a 127 LRX right now that I'm not a huge fan of. It's kind of a ballistic dud. And being a copper, it's got a higher expansion velocity need. But there are some other kind of boutique coppers. McGuire Ballistics has got some really good ones out there.
Hornady makes copper bullets too.
Yeah, their 130CX is a decent one. It's got a better profile, personally, I think, than the LRX line. But Patriot Valley Arms has their Cayuga line. They got a 129, depending on your barrel twist. And generally with coppers, you need a faster twist barrel. So a lot of it depends. But just in a everything from the 140s up to the 156s in a 6.5 caliber. There's some really good bullet offerings out there. Killed
Yeah.
a couple bucks with a 153 A tip out of this 20-inch 6.5 PRC, and it crushed both of them.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't shy away from the match loads personally. I've had really good success with match bullets.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think people hear the ELDMs and they're like, oh, I got to shoot those for matches. That's for target guys. But it's just look at, if you want to get that specific, you can reach out to Rodger or me or even Hornady specifically. They'll walk you through that, what that means. And, just take both and shoot them through your gun, whichever one groups better. They're both going to kill an animal, right? And then past that, like you said, you just need to know terminal ballistics when it hits an animal, is it going to expand or not, which is what you want. And so anyway, that's awesome. Yeah, I agree. 6.5 PRCs impressed me a lot. I've got 2 identical builds. I've got the 6 Creedmoor, which is that one right here, and a 6.5 PRC. All like it's identical except for the 6.5 PRC is green. This one's carboned out. And so my goal, and we'll see, like if my son gets into and wants to do elk this year, I might swap him out without him knowing, because he's, he'll be 12. He won't notice the difference till he pulls the trigger. But he's he loves that 6 Creedmoor. That's another one that I've been impressed with. Super low recoil. My 9-year-old was plinking a human-sized target at 500 yards, no problem. Right. So I'm impressed with that. That's great. So yeah.
6 Creeds is killing elk too, especially with a good bullet.
Yeah.
Again, on the Sierra stepped up their game this year. I'm really interested in building a 6 PRC, so I'm just taking a 6.5 PRC and necking it down to 6.
Okay.
And probably a 22-inch barrel. And Sierra has their new 116 tip Match King that is probably what I'll shoot out of that almost exclusively, or the 110A tip or something along those lines, 109 ELDM, something like that. But
yeah,
it'll be a screamer.
Yeah, it does. It definitely, again, people were like, "Oh, that's a barrel burner." I'm like, again, guys, this isn't a match gun. This is to go out and shoot with the kids and for their deer rifle. And I'd say elk. What would you say? Elk with a 6.5 or with a 6 Creedmoor, elk at what, 400 and in?
Oh yeah. I would, depending on obviously the velocity that your bullet's going to get to, and
I
what
think it's
bullet you're
pushing
going to use.
3,000 or 3,100 out of a 20-inch barrel.
Yeah, with 105, are you shooting?
I think it's 95 or 100 grain. It's right now it's the BTs from Nosler. That might be changing, but that's what I've got it set up for right now.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't shoot a BT, a 95 BT out of at an elk. I'd probably step it up to something heavy for caliber. The 109 ELDMs would probably be a better choice. The 16. I don't know if they're going to release that 116 Tip Match King in a factory load yet. I know we're going to get some component bullets for it here soon to mess around with, but man, I think 400 with a good one. I mean, they have a 103 ELDX that would hold together a little bit better than a BT. So I might switch to something like that. And yeah, depending on the bullet, see when it impacts, 400 or 500 yards, I think you'd be fine. I always like to say placement over displacement. So if he can put that shot where it needs to go, and then keep shooting, right? If it's still standing, keep shooting. But yeah, I don't think you should have any issues.
Awesome.
With that.
Well, sweet. Well, again, Rodger, I appreciate it, man. I could keep you here all day, and we could talk people's ears off about rifles and calibers and all that. You obviously nerd out about it a lot more than I do. So you're over here building your own calibers and everything. So anyway, with that, where can people find you at?
I'm on Facebook. Not a whole lot. Best price is probably Instagram at that backcountry _BABA_YAGA. And then I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Cool. Sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate you hopping on here. Everyone out there listening, thanks so much for tuning in. If you like this, definitely on Spotify, which is one of my favorite places to listen to. We've got the videos now. I know Apple's moving into that, Apple Podcast, but go and drop a comment. Go leave a review. Definitely helps a ton. And go follow us over on YouTube as well. You can watch this on YouTube. and go follow Rodger. I'll leave all his links down below. Thanks so much again, Rodger, for your time. And like I always say, guys, get out, live your life, and love it.
Appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.